Big shout out to LitRPG Reads. And to Paul Bello, fine fellow, for giving us some awesome material for this deep dive. You know, tabletop RPGs have always held a special place in my heart, and nothing amps up the excitement like a well-designed alchemy system. I still remember this one session where my party was facing off against a horde of goblins. In a dense forest, we were outnumbered, and things were looking grim. Now my character, a halfling druid, had been experimenting with a new potion recipe, using rare mushrooms, found only in the deepest parts of the forest. I wasn't entirely sure what it would do, but in the heat of battle, I decided to take a chance. Turns out, it temporarily imbued me with the ability to speak with plants, and not just any plants. These were sentient, ancient trees that were, shall we say, not too fond of goblins. Let's just say the battle quickly turned in our favor, thanks to the power of alchemical experimentation. So today, we're diving deep into fantasy alchemy systems, guided by this fantastic article from LitRPG Reads, Master Mixtures, Building Fantasy Alchemy Systems Unleash Your Creativity in Magical Brewing.
What's fascinating about this article is that it really emphasizes the immersive potential of alchemy. It goes beyond just brewing potions to crafting a dynamic gameplay element that's woven into the very fabric of the game world.
Okay, let's unpack this. The article starts with alchemy fundamentals. Introducing the core ingredient matrix. What's the big idea behind this matrix?
The core ingredient matrix is essentially the blueprint for your alchemy system. It outlines the 4 fundamental material types: herbs, minerals, crystals, and animal parts. Each type has unique magical properties and potency levels. For example, herbs might be associated with healing and vitality, minerals with strength and stability, and crystals with energy manipulation.
And animal parts. I have a feeling those are the wild cards in the mix.
You got it. Animal parts add a layer of complexity and unpredictability. Their magical properties can vary widely, creating opportunities for exciting discoveries, unexpected outcomes, and some potentially hilarious mishaps.
Okay, so if I'm a dungeon master, this matrix already has my mind racing with possibilities. I can design quests around specific ingredients, imagine the economic impact of rare animal parts, and maybe even introduce black markets or secret societies of alchemists guarding their knowledge.
Exactly. And think about how this system can encourage players to engage with the game world differently. Instead of just searching for loot, they're actively hunting for ingredients, considering the properties of each item they find, and strategizing about how to use them in their brewing.
It's not just about hacking and slashing. It's about understanding the world and its resources on a deeper level. I like that. Now, the article goes on to talk about ingredient categories, making a distinction between natural and magical ingredients. Why is this distinction important?
This distinction is crucial for world building and gameplay. Natural ingredients are your everyday herbs, minerals, and common animal parts, relatively easy to find or cultivate. Magical ingredients, on the other hand, are the rare, powerful substances that add that extra oomph to your potions.
So we're talking about things like enchanted crystals found only in dangerous caves, or the essence of a mythical beast. That requires a legendary quest to obtain.
Precisely. Incorporating these rarer ingredients into your game instantly adds layers of exploration, challenge, and intrigue. Imagine your players having to navigate treacherous landscapes, face formidable guardians, or even make risky deals in shadowy markets to get their hands on these potent ingredients.
That's a great way to spice things up. And for players, knowing the difference between natural and magical ingredients adds a layer of strategic thinking. Do they use their rare, magically infused spider venom for a minor healing potion, or save it for something with greater impact?
Exactly. It forces players to consider the value of their ingredients and make choices that impact their gameplay. And this leads us to the heart of alchemy: brewing processes. The article draws parallels to real-world practices, which I find quite clever. It grounds the fantastical in something tangible, making it more accessible for players and DMs alike.
So, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. What are the basic techniques outlined in the article?
The article highlights 3 fundamental techniques: extraction, infusion, and distillation. Each one has its own time requirements and equipment needs, which, as a DM, you can translate into engaging gameplay mechanics.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me more about these techniques. What makes each one unique?
Extraction is about pulling out the essential properties of an ingredient, like brewing tea. Imagine crushing herbs with a mortar and pestle, or using a magical press to extract potent oils. Infusion, on the other hand, is all about soaking ingredients to blend their flavors and effects. Think of a cauldron simmering over a low fire, with herbs and minerals slowly releasing their essence into a base liquid.
And distillation. I imagine, is where things get a bit more advanced.
Precisely. Distillation involves purifying a liquid. By separating its components through careful heating and condensation, you could say it's like an alchemist's version of moonshining, but with a touch of magic.
I love how these techniques can be incorporated into gameplay. I can see players making skill checks to determine the success of their extractions, infusions, or distillations, with consequences for failure. Maybe a botched distillation results in a weaker potion, or even an unexpected side effect.
That's exactly the kind of dynamic gameplay this system encourages. And remember, time is also a factor. A complex distillation might take days or even weeks in-game time, requiring players to secure their lab and defend it while the potion brews, adding suspense and strategy.
Ooh, that's a great way to build tension and create opportunities for role-playing. But before we get carried away with brewing scenarios, we need to talk about the tools of the trade. What does the article say about equipment and tools?
Well, it emphasizes that a proper laboratory setup is essential for any serious alchemist. This is where you, as a DM, can really let your creativity run wild. Imagine a sprawling workshop with bubbling cauldrons, shelves overflowing with exotic ingredients, and maybe even a few magical contraptions humming away in the corner.
I love it. It's like stepping into a mad scientist's lair, but with a touch of fantasy flair. What kind of specific tools are we talking about here?
The article mentions some classic tools, like the mortar and pestle for grinding, the alembic for distillation, and of course, the iconic cauldron for brewing concoctions. But don't be afraid to get creative and introduce tools unique to your world.
Of course, and I'm guessing each tool comes with its own costs and maintenance requirements, adding another layer of realism and resource management to the game.
Exactly. A basic mortar and pestle might be relatively cheap and easy to maintain, while a high-quality alembic could cost a small fortune and require regular cleaning and magical adjustments.
So if my players want to be master alchemists, they'll need to invest in their equipment, learn to take care of it, and maybe even hire assistants or apprentices to help them manage their growing laboratory. It's not just about throwing ingredients together, it's a whole profession.
Precisely. And let's not forget about safety features. Alchemy can be a dangerous business, especially when you're dealing with volatile ingredients and magical energies.
Ooh, yeah, that's right. I can already picture some chaotic scenarios in my head. A player's cauldron explodes, showering everyone with potion fumes. Or a misaligned alembic starts spewing toxic gas, turning the lab into a frantic escape room.
The possibilities for chaos are endless, but that's part of what makes alchemy so engaging. It's a delicate dance between risk and reward. But speaking of rewards, let's not forget the heart of it all, potion creation.
Ah, yes. Recipe design. This is where players get to unleash their creativity and ingenuity, right?
Absolutely. The article stresses that crafting effective potion formulas is a challenge in itself, demanding an understanding of ingredient interactions, a knack for balancing effects, and maybe even a dash of daring to push the boundaries of what's possible.
The article mentions an effect calculation system. What's that all about?
It's a framework for quantifying the effects of a potion, based on the ingredients used, considering factors like power, intensity of the effect, duration, how long it lasts, and synergy, how well the ingredients work together.
So, if I'm designing a potion of healing, I might want to use ingredients with high synergy for boosting vitality, and a long duration to prolong the effects. But if I'm brewing a potion of fire breath, I might prioritize power over duration for a short but intense burst of fiery fury.
You've got it. And this is where that core ingredient matrix we discussed earlier comes back into play. Understanding the properties and potencies of your ingredients is crucial for crafting effective recipes.
It's like a puzzle, figuring out which ingredients work best together to create the desired effect. It's like being a mad scientist, but with a dash of magical intuition thrown in.
Exactly. And remember, this system encourages players to experiment, to tinker with different combinations, and maybe even discover entirely new recipes. Who knows? They might even stumble upon a potion that's never been created before.
This is going to be so much fun to implement in my games. But before we move on to the more advanced stuff, let's talk about the magic behind the mixing. The article dives into magical theory, exploring the underlying principles that make alchemy possible.
Right. And this is where things get really interesting. The article focuses on the concept of energy manipulation, suggesting that different magical forces require specific techniques to control and harness them during potion creation. It's not just about mixing ingredients, it's about understanding and manipulating the magical energies involved.
That's fascinating. So, it's like a blend of magic and science, a delicate dance between harnessing raw power and channeling it with precision. I'm intrigued. Tell me more about these techniques for energy manipulation.
The article delves into 3 primary methods: channeling, synchronizing, and containing. Each one plays a vital role in creating stable and potent potions. Take channeling, for instance. Imagine a wizard focusing their will to cast a spell.
Oh, I get it. So with channeling, you're directing magical energies with precision, using specific gestures, incantations, or maybe even specialized tools to guide the flow of energy during brewing.
You're catching on quickly. It's not just about chucking ingredients into a pot. It's about actively controlling those magical energies.
It's blowing my mind. And synchronizing, what's that all about?
Imagine trying to blend 2 volatile magical substances without causing a catastrophic explosion. Synchronizing is all about finding that delicate balance, harmonizing those energies so they work together seamlessly instead of clashing.
That sounds like a high-stakes balancing act, like juggling live grenades filled with magical energy.
It certainly can be. And then you have containing, which is all about preventing energy overflow. Ensuring your potion doesn't become too potent or unstable. Think of it as using magical seals, specialized containers, or even sacrificing some of the potion's potency to keep things under control.
Wow. This system is incredibly intricate and fascinating. I can already envision incorporating these techniques into my games, with players facing skill checks to channel volatile energies, synchronize conflicting ingredients, and contain potentially explosive brews. It's a recipe for adventure.
Exactly. And that's where risk management comes into play, reminding us that alchemy isn't always a smooth ride.
Ooh, that's right. There's a certain thrill in the danger, that element of risk that adds a layer of excitement to the whole process. Alchemy can be a risky business. What kind of dangers are we talking about here?
Well, the article introduces a risk assessment matrix. That outlines different danger levels, warning signs, and preventive measures. Let's say a player is brewing a particularly potent potion. They might notice unexpected color changes, bubbling or smoking from the mixture, even strange sounds or vibrations. These are all warning signs that things might be going south.
And what happens if they ignore those signs? Let's just say a few goblins wandered into my druid's lab while he was experimenting with those volatile mushrooms.
I can only imagine. The consequences could be anything from a fizzle, rendering the potion useless, to a full-blown explosion, causing damage to the lab and anyone nearby. It might even result in some unexpected mutations or transformations. Remember those goblins?
Let's just say they didn't stay goblins for very long. That's a story for another time. But seriously, this risk assessment matrix is a brilliant tool for DMs to introduce tension and unexpected twists into their games.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that every action has consequences, especially when you're dealing with potent magic and volatile ingredients. But this brings us to another intriguing aspect of the system: market systems.
Yes. Because what's the point of brewing all these amazing potions if you can't share them with the world, right? Tell me more about how the article suggests structuring the economics of potion making.
Well, it lays out a straightforward system based on 3 key factors: ingredient rarity, potion effectiveness, and market demand. Ingredient rarity is pretty self-explanatory. The rarer the ingredients, the more valuable the potion.
Of course, it's all about supply and demand, just like in the real world. But how does potion effectiveness play into it?
It's all about potency. A basic healing potion might fetch a decent price, but a potion that grants temporary invulnerability, that's going to command a king's ransom.
Right. The more powerful the effect, the higher the price. It makes perfect sense. But what about market demand? How does that factor into the equation?
Think of it like this. If there's a sudden outbreak of a deadly disease, healing potions are going to be in high demand, driving up prices. Or if a powerful wizard is seeking a potion that enhances spellcasting abilities, the competition among alchemists is going to be fierce.
So, it's not just about brewing the best potions. It's about understanding the market, identifying opportunities, and even anticipating trends. It's like running a business, but with a dash of magic.
Yeah.
And a whole lot of risk.
Precisely. And this adds another layer of complexity and strategy to the game. Players can't just assume they can sell any potion they brew for a profit. They need to be savvy, assess the market, and maybe even engage in a little friendly competition with other alchemists.
I love it. This has given me so many ideas for my next campaign. I can already imagine my players setting up potion shops, haggling with merchants, and maybe even engaging in a little bit of shady dealing on the black market.
And don't forget about the potential for scams and counterfeit potions. The market for magical goods is ripe for exploitation, creating all sorts of opportunities for intrigue, role-playing, and maybe even a little bit of danger.
This is going to be epic. But let's not forget about those alchemists who are constantly pushing the boundaries, seeking to discover new recipes and concoctions. The article talks about innovation rules, which sounds right up my alley.
It's a fascinating section that encourages players to think outside the box, to experiment and discover. It emphasizes that innovation is a process that involves observation, experimentation, and refinement. It's not just about following recipes, it's about breaking the mold and creating something truly unique.
Okay, I'm hooked. Tell me more about how this innovation process works in the context of this alchemy system.
The article outlines a specific research methods process. It starts with hypothesis, where the alchemist comes up with an idea for a new potion or technique. Maybe they're inspired by an existing recipe, a rare ingredient they've discovered, or simply a desire to create something that's never been seen before.
So, it all begins with a spark of inspiration, that moment of what if. That's how all great discoveries are made.
Exactly. The next step is experimentation, where the alchemist puts their hypothesis to the test. They gather the necessary ingredients, set up their lab, and follow a carefully planned procedure.
And this is where those risk management skills come into play, right? Because experimentation can be unpredictable, especially when you're dealing with volatile ingredients and potent magic.
Absolutely. Failure is a part of the process. Sometimes those failures lead to disastrous outcomes, but other times they lead to unexpected discoveries. It's all about embracing the unknown.
It's like a high-stakes gamble, where the payoff could be a revolutionary new potion or a catastrophic lab explosion.
Exactly. Once the experiment is complete. The next step is documentation. The alchemist meticulously records their observations, noting the ingredients used, the techniques employed, and the results obtained.
So it's like keeping a detailed lab journal, tracking both successes and failures, to learn from each experiment.
Precisely. And this documentation is essential for the final step, refinement. The alchemist analyzes their results, looks for patterns, identifies areas for improvement, and adjusts their hypothesis accordingly.
It's an iterative process, constantly learning and improving, striving for perfection. It's like a scientific approach to magic.
Exactly. And this innovation rules section encourages players to embody that spirit of discovery, to become true alchemists who are constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
I'm already picturing my players brewing potions of invisibility, concoctions that can turn lead into gold, or even elixirs that grant temporary flight. The possibilities are endless.
And remember, as a DM, you can play a big role in encouraging this innovation. Maybe you offer rewards for players who create new potions, or discover rare ingredients with unique properties. Or perhaps you introduce a quest that requires a specific type of potion that hasn't been invented yet.
This is going to add a whole new dimension to my campaigns.
Yeah.
But before we get carried away with dreams of alchemical grandeur, we need to talk about quality control.
Yes. Because what's the point of brewing a potent potion if it's going to spoil before you can even use it?
Right. What does the article say about ensuring the quality and longevity of these magical concoctions?
It emphasizes that quality control is all about thorough testing and adherence to standards. It outlines a quality assurance framework that ensures each potion meets expectations. It involves standardized testing to evaluate consistency and efficacy using objective criteria to determine quality.
Yep. It's not just about eyeballing it and hoping for the best. You need to actually measure the potion's potency, check its stability over time, and maybe even test its effects on a controlled subject.
Exactly. And then there are consistency checks, which involve regularly assessing the quality of the potions to make sure they're not degrading or losing potency over time. It's an ongoing process, like running quality control checks in a factory.
This is getting pretty serious. It sounds like a blend of magic and science, a meticulous process that requires both skill and attention to detail.
Absolutely. And finally, there's the feedback loop. This involves incorporating the results of those tests and consistency checks back into the brewing process to continually refine and improve the quality of the potions.
So it's a never-ending cycle of learning and improvement. I love it. It's like a scientific approach to magic.
And that's precisely what makes this system so engaging. It's not just about following recipes, it's about understanding the underlying principles, experimenting, analyzing results, and constantly striving for perfection. Host, speaker. It's amazing how this system we've been discussing encourages you to think about potions not just as consumables, but as integral parts of the world building itself.
You're right. It's not just about what potions do. It's about where they come from, who makes them, and how they impact the world around them.
Precisely. Think about it. If a rare herb is essential for a powerful healing potion, that herb's location, guardians, and even its harvesting methods all become elements of your game. It creates a dynamic ecosystem where the magic system influences the environment, and vice versa.
That's so cool. Suddenly, a seemingly simple fetch quest for a sprig of moon petal becomes a thrilling expedition into a hidden grove, guarded by a grumpy treant.
Exactly, and imagine the economic repercussions. If there's only one alchemist in the kingdom who knows the recipe for a potion of flight, that creates a bottleneck, potentially influencing trade routes, political alliances, and even sparking conflict between rival factions.
Whoa, that's deep. It's like a domino effect, where the existence of one potion can have far-reaching consequences for the entire game world.
And let's not forget the social implications. Who gets access to these potions? Are they available to everyone, or are they reserved for the wealthy and powerful? Do certain potions carry a stigma, perhaps those derived from ethically questionable ingredients?
Ooh, that's a great point. A potion that grants temporary invisibility could be a boon for a stealthy rogue. But what if the main ingredient is the essence of a rare, endangered creature? Suddenly there's a moral dilemma woven into the very act of brewing.
Exactly, and that's where role-playing really comes alive. Players have to grapple with these ethical dilemmas, making choices that impact not just their characters, but also the world around them.
I love how this system encourages that kind of nuanced thinking. It's not just about crunching numbers and rolling dice. It's about making choices that matter.
Yeah.
Choices with consequences.
Speaking of choices, one of the things that really excites me about this system is how it empowers players to become innovators. It's not just about following recipes, it's about pushing boundaries and discovering new possibilities.
I totally agree. The innovation rules section is like a playground for creative alchemists. It encourages players to experiment, to think outside the box, and maybe even discover potions that have never been brewed before.
And the article provides a structured approach to this experimentation. It starts with a hypothesis, a what-if moment, where a player wonders, what if I combine this rare flower with the scales of a fire drake?
Okay, that sounds dangerous but intriguing. Then what happens?
Then comes the experimentation phase, where the player gathers the necessary ingredients, sets up their lab, and carefully follows a procedure, all while being mindful of those risk management factors we discussed earlier.
Because a little too much fire drake scale could turn a lab experiment into a fiery disaster.
Exactly. And whether the experiment is a success or a failure, the next step is documentation. The player meticulously records their observations, noting the ingredients used, the techniques employed, and the results obtained.
So, it's like keeping a detailed scientific journal, tracking every step of the process to learn from both triumphs and mishaps.
Precisely. And this documentation is crucial for the final step, refinement, where the player analyzes their results, looking for patterns, identifying areas for improvement, and maybe even adjusting their original hypothesis.
It's an iterative process, a cycle of experimentation, observation, and refinement. That mirrors the scientific method. It's like a blend of magic and science, a systematic approach to unlocking the secrets of alchemy.
And this system makes that process engaging and rewarding for players. Imagine the sense of accomplishment when a player, after weeks of experimentation, finally cracks the code and brews a potion that grants temporary flight or invisibility.
That's the kind of moment that makes tabletop RPG so memorable. And it's not just about the end result. It's about the journey, the challenges overcome, the lessons learned, and the stories created along the way.
Speaking of stories, I think it's worth considering the narrative potential of alchemy. Potions can be so much more than just healing items or stat boosters. They can be powerful tools for storytelling.
I totally agree. I remember a campaign where a mysterious potion was at the center of the plot. It had the power to grant immortality, but with a terrible curse attached. The party spent weeks tracking down the ingredients, deciphering ancient texts, and facing dangerous guardians, all to obtain this elusive potion.
That sounds like an epic adventure. What happened?
Well, they eventually obtained the potion. But then they had to grapple with the ethical dilemma, should they use it, knowing the potential consequences, or destroy it, sacrificing a chance at immortality for the greater good. It was a pivotal moment in the campaign, a decision that shaped the fate of their characters and the world around them.
And that's what I love about incorporating alchemy into storytelling. It's not just about the mechanics, it's about the choices, the dilemmas, and the consequences that make the story come alive.
Right. And this system provides a framework for weaving those narratives.
Yeah.
Whether it's a quest to find a rare ingredient, a moral dilemma over a powerful potion, or the consequences of alchemical experimentation gone wrong. It's like a storytelling toolbox, filled with possibilities.
And speaking of possibilities, one of the aspects I find particularly intriguing is how alchemy can be integrated into combat and exploration, not just through potion consumption, but through more active application.
Oh, tell me more about that. I love the idea of using alchemy not just to heal or buff, but to create dynamic situations and challenges.
Imagine your players exploring a dark subterranean labyrinth. Instead of just chugging a potion of night vision, they use alchemical ingredients to create glowing orbs that illuminate the path ahead, revealing hidden passages and lurking dangers.
That's awesome. It's like using alchemy to interact with the environment, to shape the battlefield to their advantage.
Exactly. And think about how this could translate to combat encounters. Instead of just throwing a potion of fire at an enemy, your players could use alchemical concoctions to create clouds of obscuring smoke, slippery patches of ice, or even bursts of blinding light, all to gain a tactical edge.
I love it. It's like turning alchemy into a weapon, a tool for strategic maneuvering and creative problem solving.
Precisely. It adds a layer of depth and dynamism to combat, encouraging players to think outside the box and use their alchemical knowledge to overcome challenges. And you, as a DM, can design encounters that play into this system, creating scenarios where alchemical ingenuity is the key to victory.
This is giving me so many ideas for my next campaign. But before we get carried away with tactical planning, let's take a step back and consider something that's often overlooked: the relationship between alchemy and other magical systems in the game world.
That's an excellent point. It's important to think about how alchemy interacts with other magical traditions, like spellcasting, divine magic, or even psionic abilities.
Right. Does alchemy complement these other systems, or does it clash with them?
That's a question that you as a DM can answer in a way that best fits your world and your narrative. Perhaps alchemists and wizards have a symbiotic relationship, sharing knowledge and resources.
Or maybe there's a rivalry between them, each vying for dominance in the realm of magic. I could see that leading to some interesting conflicts and alliances.
Exactly. And think about how different magical systems might influence alchemical practices. Perhaps certain spells can be used to enhance alchemical processes, or maybe divine blessings can imbue potions with additional properties.
That's a really cool way to weave those different systems together, creating a sense of interconnectedness within the world. It's like a tapestry of magic, with alchemy playing a vital role in its intricate design.
And remember, this interconnectedness can extend to the social and political structures of your world. Perhaps alchemists have formed guilds or societies to protect their knowledge and regulate their practices.
Or maybe they're advisors to kings and queens, their expertise sought after by those in power. I can even imagine alchemists playing a role in international diplomacy, their potions and concoctions sought after by foreign dignitaries and merchants.
The possibilities are truly endless, and it's through this interplay of mechanics, narrative, and world building that alchemy comes to life, transforming from a simple game mechanic into a vibrant and integral part of the gaming experience.
Well said. But before we delve further into these alchemical depths, let's hear what our listeners have to say. We ask you to share the most creative or unexpected uses of potions you've encountered in your tabletop RPG adventures. And we've got some amazing responses.
I'm eager to hear what they've come up with.
Me too. Let's start with this one from a listener named Alex. He writes, "In our campaign, we had a rogue who was obsessed with poisons. He'd spent hours meticulously crafting potent toxins from rare ingredients. But the twist was, he'd use these poisons not to kill, but to incapacitate. He'd concoct elaborate blends that caused temporary paralysis, uncontrollable laughter, or even intense hallucinations. It was always a gamble, but it made for some hilarious and memorable encounters."
That's a fantastic example of how alchemy can be used for more than just dealing damage. It can be a tool for creative problem solving, adding an element of surprise and unpredictability to encounters.
Right. It's not always about brute force. Sometimes it's about using your wits and your alchemical skills to outsmart your opponents.
And think about the role-playing potential. That rogue's obsession with poisons could be a fascinating character trait, a quirk that makes them stand out from the rest of the party.
Absolutely. It could even lead to some interesting moral dilemmas. What happens when the rogue's unorthodox methods clash with the party's sense of ethics? Or when their poisons accidentally harm an innocent bystander?
It's those moments of conflict and tension that create memorable stories and deepen the bonds between characters.
Now, here's another great comment from a listener named Jessica. She says, "In our game, we use potions not just for combat or exploration, but for social interactions. Our bard, who's also a skilled alchemist, has created a whole repertoire of potions that enhance charm, persuasion, and even empathy. He uses them to navigate complex social situations, sway opinions, and even forge unlikely alliances.
That's a brilliant idea. It shows how alchemy can be used to influence not just physical environments, but also social dynamics, adding a whole new layer of intrigue and strategy to role-playing encounters.
Imagine using a potion to calm down an angry mob, sway the opinion of a skeptical judge, or even forge a bond of trust with a suspicious adversary.
It opens up so many creative possibilities for role-playing and problem-solving.
Now here's a final comment from a listener named Daniel. He writes, "In our campaign, our DM implemented a really cool twist on potions. Instead of having predetermined effects, the potion's properties are revealed only after they're consumed. This element of surprise led to some hilarious and chaotic moments, as well as some clever strategizing, as we tried to figure out how to use each potion to our advantage."
That's a fantastic way to introduce an element of risk and reward to potion use. It turns each potion into a gamble, a potential boon, or a hilarious mishap waiting to happen.
I love it. It's a great way to keep players on their toes and encourage them to adapt to unexpected situations.
And it makes each potion a unique and memorable experience, rather than just another item in their inventory.
These are just a few examples of the many creative and unexpected ways that players and DMs are using potions in their games. It's inspiring to see how a simple mechanic can spark so much imagination and lead to such diverse and engaging gameplay experiences.
It's a testament to the power of tabletop RPGs to foster creativity, collaboration, and storytelling.
Now we've explored a lot of ground today, but there's still so much more to uncover.
That's the beauty of this topic. It's a deep well of inspiration, with endless possibilities for exploration and discovery.
Before we continue this alchemical adventure, I have a question for our listeners. If you could brew any potion, real or imagined, what would it be and why? Share your alchemical aspirations in the comments below. We'd love to hear about the potions you'd create and the magic you'd unleash upon the world. It's incredible how this deep dive has opened my eyes to the potential of alchemy in tabletop RPGs. It's so much more than just brewing potions. It's a whole world of possibilities.
It is, isn't it? This system we've been unpacking goes beyond mechanics and numbers, delving into the heart of world building, storytelling, and character development.
Exactly. And one of the things that struck me is the adaptability of this system. You can tailor it to fit any fantasy setting, from high magic worlds where alchemy is as common as blacksmithing, to gritty low magic settings where it's shrouded in secrecy and whispered rumors.
You're absolutely right. It can be seamlessly integrated into existing campaign settings, or serve as the foundation for entirely new worlds, where the pursuit of alchemical knowledge drives the narrative.
And it's a system that scales beautifully as players progress. They can start with simple recipes and techniques, gradually mastering more advanced concepts as they gain experience, gather rare ingredients, and expand their laboratories.
It's a journey of discovery, a path that leads from novice apprentice to master alchemist, with challenges and rewards tailored to their growing expertise.
And speaking of rewards, one of the things I appreciate about this system is how it incentivizes creativity and innovation. It's not just about following instructions, it's about experimenting, pushing boundaries, and discovering new possibilities.
It encourages players to embrace that spirit of exploration, to think like alchemists, to approach challenges with a mix of scientific curiosity and magical intuition.
Imagine a player discovering a new alchemical property in a rare plant found deep within a forgotten jungle, or inventing a technique to stabilize a volatile ingredient, unlocking its true potential.
It's those moments of discovery, those breakthroughs that push the boundaries of alchemical knowledge, that make the system so engaging and rewarding.
Now, before we wrap up this alchemical adventure, I want to touch on a topic that often sparks debate among gamers: the ethical implications of alchemy.
Ah, yes. A crucial aspect that deserves careful consideration. After all, alchemy is a powerful force, capable of both great good and great harm.
Right. It's all about responsibility, understanding the potential consequences of your creations, and using your knowledge wisely. Imagine a potion that grants superhuman strength. Who should have access to such power? What safeguards should be in place to prevent its misuse?
Or a potion that can manipulate memories or emotions. The ethical implications of such concoctions are staggering. It raises questions about consent, manipulation, and the very nature of free will.
These are complex questions that DMs and players can explore together, creating narratives that delve into the gray areas of morality, where the line between good and evil is not always clear.
It's an opportunity to engage in meaningful discussions, to challenge assumptions, and to create stories that resonate on a deeper level.
It's about realizing that even in a world of magic and fantasy, actions have consequences, and the pursuit of knowledge should always be tempered with wisdom and a sense of responsibility.
And that's a lesson that transcends the boundaries of tabletop RPGs, a reminder that the choices we make, both big and small, shape the world around us.
Well said. So to all our listeners out there, we encourage you to embrace the magic of alchemy, to experiment, to innovate, and to create stories that are both thrilling and thought-provoking.
Remember, the world is your laboratory, and the possibilities are limited only by your imagination.
And once again, a huge thanks to Lit RPG Reads and to Paul Bello, fine fellow, for providing the inspiration for this deep dive into the fascinating world of fantasy alchemy systems. We hope you've enjoyed this alchemical journey as much as we have. Until next time, may your brews be potent, your experiments successful, and your adventures unforgettable.